As we walk through this Hall 5 at the World Flower Show in India, I want to show you some of the designs that have been put together in a display called Glorious India. Each of the designs is made by a member of the local Pushpa Batan Society, and it showcases some very important point in Indian life, culture or history. So the first one that we're looking at here is about Assam bamboo craft. And you can see, if we look in nice and closely, that the containers are made of bamboo. This is one of the richest traditions of handicraft in the area and uses local bamboo from northeast India. So we've got the containers that are made with cane looking split bamboo, I would say, and some gloriosa lilies and a little bit of foliage. Just highlights for you the work that is incorporated into the bamboo. Let's move on to the next one. This one is about block printing. And this particular exhibit is very similar to one that I saw staged at the World Show in Dublin in 2014, and that was as the country exhibit. So you can see how important this style of artwork is to the Indian culture. As I said, this one is depicting block printing, which is seen in many things from fabrics in the saris to art and architecture. What's interesting, I think, in the architecture side of things, you can see some flowers that are depicted in the tile work there, or what is supposed to look like tile work. I went to a lecture earlier on today, and it was about flowers in art and architecture in India, and they were talking about how in this particular area where the show is, Rajasthan, is a desert. And so their knowledge of flowers, particularly the exotic sorts of things that weren't locally grown, came from travellers. And the travellers would embellish their stories somewhat. So often what you would see in the work in the architecture would be a single stem with 3 different kinds of flowers over the top of it. So a very interesting depiction of the stories that were being told and how they were depicted in the architecture, because it was obviously important to show how people from the area had travelled, and this is what they came back with, this information and these stories. This next one we're going to look at now is about coconut craft of Kerala. Kerala is a region in India, and this particular design uses both fresh and dried forms of coconut, and it appears that nothing goes to waste. If you look right down at the bottom of it, you'll see some very small coconuts that have been carved, and you'll see some within the design. We've got the spathes from the coconut palm itself. Some of the inflorescence has been used and woven into the design. Obviously there's a couple of stray flowers that are not part of the coconut palms. We've got some orchids in there, we've got some banksias in there. But for the bulk of the design, the structure and the pieces that have been used around the design, they are from the coconut palm. Next one is about the House of Puppets. Now puppets, and this particular form of puppetry, is very prevalent here in Jaipur. And there's a fellow who sells the puppets on the way into the show each morning. He comes to see if he can convince us that we need puppets to take home with us, and 2-for-1 offer, all the rest of it. Not something I can do because we can't bring timber back into Australia, but interesting to see nonetheless the bright colours that they use and how that has been matched with the floral material in this design. And this one is about Kantha. It's a pre-Vedic stitching that's seen in many traditional items. So I'll step back a bit so you can see the display as a whole. And obviously it's depicting some fabric as well as the patterns that are within the printed fabric, but has the backing of the stitching. What's interesting about this one is the use of the lilies. Lilies often in our designs are so big and so dominant, but because of this particular design and the size of it, we're able to see them in scale, in proportion to the rest of the design. The other thing I like about this is the tapestry hoops that have been used as part of the structure. And you don't notice them straight away, but you do eventually notice that they're there, and it just adds a little bit of extra interpretation to this particular design. Number 6 in our displays is Freedom of India. I find this particular design very powerful. It's very impactful in an interesting way. It's not about the colour. It's not the colour that impacts you. It's just the sense of power and struggle that is within this design. It's just very well interpreted for my way of thinking. And it is, as the sign said, it is about the revolutionary movement that saw the end of British rule in India. And you can start to see the next one that we're going to move on to. This is about blue pottery. Not hard to guess once you see it. The blue pottery shows the influence of Turkish and Persian cultures, and this is widely recognised as a traditional craft, the blue pottery, of Jaipur, which is where we are, which is where the World Show is being hosted for 2020. Interesting how all of the plant material, pretty much, apart from the flowers, has been painted in the blue. So all of that material behind is all plant material. The structure and the associated shapes that are there within it. We'll move on to the next one, and this is about, first of all, I'll let you read about the blue pottery. Now we'll move on to the Terracotta of Bengal. And I guess if you had asked me before I got to India what I would see as a typical depiction of India, it would be this. It would be the terracotta colours, the yellows and the oranges. This one is about the actual terracotta, the production of terracotta. And interesting to look at the marigolds. These marigolds on a string, we see them everywhere, because they're used as offerings in the temple, so you need to go out and buy them every day. They cost about 20 cents for a metre of them, or the equivalent of 20 Australian cents for a metre of them. Now I'm going to attempt to say that this is Minakari, and it's a Persian art that's been passed down to the northern states of India over time. To me, it almost looks like a design from Thailand. It's just the shape and the colour that is incorporated into this, and the use of the jasmine or orchid, either one. It's probably more likely to be jasmine here, and stringing them into that pattern in the background is something that I would expect to see more often in something from Thailand than from India. Beautiful design though, isn't it? So around the corner, oh no, I better let you read the sign. And so let's move now on to some of the depictions of the weaving work that is done here. This first one is about Kashmiri shawls, and they were introduced by weavers of Turkestan and favoured here by local nobility and royalty. And I'm sure that those of you who like wearing shawls would be very happy to have a Kashmiri shawl to wear. I like the way the seed pods and the flowers have been dyed to incorporate into the idea of the weaving. It looks like it's a loom. It looks like weaving is actually happening. Now the next one's about mirror work. I must admit I have not seen mirror work on anything other than shoes, but it is a decorative art, and what I like about this design is that they've incorporated the mirrors and used plant material to reflect that shape of the mirror bands, but different types of plant material. And there's a lot of work in that dried plant material that is the banding there. That would have had to have been done when it was green, so months ago, and worked into those shapes. So there's certainly been a lot of planning and effort gone into these designs before they had to actually be put together and displayed. Now we're back to another weaving loom, and khadi is a hand-spun and hand-woven textile. These spinning wheels that you see there, the black spinning wheel there, they were actually used in one of the impose classes in the competition, and you can see the photos of how people used those in their designs separately on the website, and I'll put a little link down to the bottom of it so that you can see that. What they have done here is cleverly brought the colours that they're using in the fabric into the plant material. So it does look like it's part of the weaving that's happening in the background because the colours are reflected. Next one is a bit of a fun one. This is about Mumbai as the gateway to India. And it makes me smile because down the bottom on the right-hand corner as you're looking at it, we can see the Bollywood and the bright lights of the film industry. There's vegetables and the depiction of the gods, the sparkling water of the bay. Just one that makes me smile. Now number 14 is a very interesting one. It's interesting for us as floral designers because it's using a particular technique that we haven't seen previously to any great degree. And it incorporates jute, which we see a lot in the local designs, but what has happened here is that they've put it into shapes and then dipped it into a slurry or a loose paste of wheat flour and water, and just dipped it in a few times so that you get that different sort of texture drying across the jute itself. And they've also used it against some of the palm inflorescence that they've used around the design as well. So everything in this design, apart from the palm inflorescence, comes from jute. So the flowers you see are a jute processed material. The bands, the wheels, all from jute string or jute products generally. Now number 15 in our displays of Glorious India is Patachitra, and it's a popular art form that depicts local stories and mythology of West Bengal. So that's the artwork that's at the back, and what they've done here is a sympathetic display that would be part of the story that's been shown on the back. Some lovely work with the bowls and all of the containers being made out of plant material to highlight what's happening in that story behind on the actual artwork itself. Now we're going to go back to the puppets, and I'm probably going to step back a bit further so that you can see the full effect of the puppets here. This is the puppets of Rajasthan. They are a single string marionette used to tell stories through songs. And we saw a demonstration yesterday where one of the local designers had actually used the mechanism for the puppets, so the strings and the little boxes, and actually put floral material inside them, and we all thought it was just a nice mobile till she stepped around the back and started to move the levers so that they went up and down. There was the big oh moment in the demonstration. Now our last design in the Glorious India is the wood carving of Rajasthan. The birds here in this particular design, I'll go in close so you can see them, but they're made from a local tree, a cholly tree, and we saw on a previous evening at the awards ceremony, all of the carvings, all of the displays on the stage were made from this tree. So it's a very white looking bark or fibre, tree fibre, but quite soft, so you can make it into all of these shapes. Slice it very finely and make it into all of these shapes, as you can see. Interesting to look at the backdrop for this one. It does look like a wood carving. In one of the other displays that was of peacocks and palaces, and you can go and have a look at that as well, you'll see that there's another panel like this that they've used as the backdrop for their design, and theirs was actually made out of foam. I think this is a real timber one, but theirs was made out of foam and then painted to look like timber. Sort of thing you had to look at twice to make sure that whether it was wood or not, but this one looks like it might be the actual real item. So there we have it, Glorious India at the World Flower Show 2020 in Jaipur in February and March. I hope you've enjoyed this closer look at these designs, and maybe there's something here that has inspired you or given you some food for thought. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.